This is a feature-length documentary film project about the tiny house movement on the West Coast of the United States and the people that are pushing this movement. We're following along and learning so much, and we hope that we can share it with others. My name is Gabriel Kraft. I've been interested in small homes and cabins and travel trailers and tiny houses for about 15 years. I bought a lot of books before I went to Japan. I moved to Japan in 2003, and I didn't plan to live there 11 years. I just liked it. I'm 36, so now I'll be starting my life over, but actually it's not really starting over. I think we start over every day.
I'm Joan.
Joan. Hey!
Yuichi!
I am Ben.
Ben,
Hi.
nice to meet you.
Hi, Joan. My name's Gabriel.
Gabriel.
Nice to meet you.
Do you want me to walk you down to the house?
Yeah, you do want
Wanna
to?
jump in?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
See that little silver car
Yeah.
down
Behind
there, and then you can just pull in right behind it.
Okay. Yeah, it was good.
Awesome. Well, let's get out of here.
Yep.
Whoa, whoa.
Sounds good.
And so how do you get out of here?
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Woohoo! So this is our place, remember?
Yeah, I remember.
So good to see you.
Thank you for this. You're kind. Yeah.
And then I'll show you the tiny house. And you guys, are you gonna do like rock, paper, scissors to see who gets to sleep in Sweet Pea? Yeah. Not yet. It's a good reason to not use RV things for permanent homes because it's not strong. It's not built to use, repeatedly. And our friend Gina, whose house it is, Dee designed it and Pad built it, the house, and then she moved in and lived here for a year. And then she met a Frenchman and got pregnant, and now that she lives in France with her baby. Well, it's really interesting because this bathroom is gigantic compared to her bathroom in Lyon. In Lyon, France. Yeah, it's a tiny house. It's actually not much bigger than this. Tiny is not new. It just new in America.
My name is Jay Schaefer. I built my first tiny house back in, it depends on what you call a tiny house. Because I actually moved into a tiny Airstream trailer, just 14 feet long, in 1997. And it was kind of like a test run because while I was in there, I could see what I needed, what I didn't need, what I missed. I decided I needed insulation and a couple other things. So by 2000, I built my own house from scratch. As soon as I did finish it, I entered a contest. Natural Home Magazine had a House of the Year contest. And I figured it might be a good way to get this message out to Americans who we have a hard time understanding simplicity, because apparently we tend to be able to get more space and more stuff. And I actually placed as most innovative house of 2000, I believe it was. And from there, it just kept on blossoming like media snowball. And it's just gotten bigger and bigger in the last 15 years. Every year, I'm surprised by how it could get bigger, more popular in the United States, and mostly in countries where it seems like places where people live in big houses. They love tiny houses there.
The goal is to kind of build community within the tiny house movement, to educate people on how to build houses, how to build them safely, challenges for tiny house people, and to really just answer people's questions about the whole process of living in tiny houses.
So this is our house. It's a modified tumbleweed cypress. It's 20 feet long and 125 square feet. It's about 6 feet 8 inches wall to wall, about 10 feet and a half in height, and it weighs 10,100 pounds. And here you're in the main room. This is our office, dining room, lounge area, whatever you want to call it, movie room. We just installed this. So we have movies.
So my name is Cole. I'm one of the owners of Caravan, the Tiny House Hotel. This is the first tiny house hotel, as far as we know, anywhere in the world, but most definitely it's the first tiny house hotel in the country. We have 6 unique custom-made tiny houses on wheels. They're all less than 160 square feet, and they're all one of a kind.
I've definitely done some research the past couple years, and I would definitely be interested in living in a house this size. I've never actually physically been in one, so that's why I came today, just so you see videos and pictures, but you don't know how small or big they feel until you get in one. So it feels bigger than I thought it would.
Open for just under 2 years, and the business is going great.
It seems strange to me sometimes that such a simple, seemingly obvious message would escape most Americans for a while. I mean, certainly I'm not the first person to ever build a tiny house in America or anywhere, but I think because I pointed out the stupidity in our laws that forbid building very small houses, and I really emphasized the merits and talked about those things. I think that's part of how I became associated with the tiny house movement.
Hi, my name is Lynna Menard. I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and I moved to Portland, Oregon 4 years ago to study urban planning at Portland State University. So about a year ago, I started building my own tiny house on wheels. And here it is, the Lucky Penny. This is my kitchen. So I have an oven, and I have a sink, and I have a cooktop that I can use on the counter. This is my chest freezer, so I can store food. This is my bed. It pulls out and then opens up, so it comes out to here. Currently, the place that I live is a place called Simply Home Community, and it's a tiny co-housing community. We have one big house that we all share. We've got a big kitchen with a 5-burner gas range. We have a bathroom. We have a dining room with a games closet. We have a living room. We even have a projector and a projection screen so we can watch movies together. At the moment, we also have a guest room, though we've got somebody who's probably going to be joining us soon.
So this started, we all know each other because we helped each other. I helped Lena build her house. Lena helped me design my house. I helped Ben with his electrical. He helped me with framing, etc. So we all knew each other, and we were all looking for a place to land. And we thought, why not do it together?
I love it here, yes. It's a fulfillment of everything I pretty much have ever wanted. I have my own little space in the middle of nature with a vegetable garden and fruit trees and berries and lots of entertainment for my cat. But most importantly, I'm doing it with other people. You know, if somebody tried to do this by themselves, to manage this property alone would be an enormous amount of work. But we all work on it, and that makes everything not only easier, but a lot more fun, because we do it together.
I started this place. It was originally at a big kind of meeting that me and probably around 20 other people were having to discuss tiny house legality, like once a month or so. And then from that, Tony at one point raised his hand and was like, "Hey, would anybody be interested in like going in on a house together and creating a tiny house community?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally."
So we started shopping for a house, which was not easy. You need a little bit of yard space. So we shopped for a house for I think 6 or 8 months and could not find one. This place was not for sale. We just made them an offer and they happened to take it. Yeah, there's a lot of luck, but a lot of just, you know, if you poke it long enough, something will happen.
So one of the things that's nice about having the big house and the little houses is that we have the ability to use that larger space as our common space. About a month ago, I hosted a dinner party for 10 people. I couldn't do that here in my tiny house, so it was really nice to be able to do that in the big house.
The challenges we did face was finding the place at all. Got lucky. There's a lot of work in here that is under the ground, putting in water, power, networking, etc., just to make it work. I think one of the biggest fears that we had was that one of the neighbors would talk to the city, and that would be that. The city inspector shows up, and we don't know what happens at that point. Actually, it was funny. We were trying to keep it secret. We were trying to keep it hidden, but it never worked. Like, we had the plan to move it in, 7 a.m. in the dark, and no one would notice, and maybe they wouldn't notice that it'd been there for 2 weeks. But it worked out where they all happened to show up around 5 p.m. when everyone's home, sitting in their lawn going, "What's going on over there?" All the neighbors knew about it, like instantaneously. And some of them approached us to say, "Oh, that's really cool. That's really neat." That has been, it was our biggest fear of the neighbors, and it turned out to not really be a worry at all.
I know that the most environmentally friendly thing we could do would be to live in apartments. But I think that tiny houses are a really nice option in neighborhoods like ours, where we have a lot of houses on big lots. So we can add some additional density without changing the character of the neighborhood.
I would say that the city wants something like this. They need more urban density. Portland has an urban growth boundary. They don't want sprawl. They don't just want suburbs for miles. It's far more efficient to deliver city services when things are close in. This is a good setup. There are legitimate questions. What do you do with waste? And you can't just dump it in the backyard. It's, there's problems with that. It has to be done well. And I think if you're going to be successful, you have to do it well. And you have to think about all these things, and you have to think about it from the city's perspective of, you know, there's reasons for those rules.
Yeah, how are you? Bring it in.
My name's Gabriel.
Gabriel, good to meet you, man. Yeah.
So this is yours.
Yeah, this is the salsa box. That's the second house we built.
The first one's
Miter box.
yeah.
Yeah. It's actually at our warehouse now. We just sold it, and we're building the second one. The guy wants 2 of them. Yeah.
I'd like to visit your warehouse too. If you have some.
Yeah, come on out. You guys play ping pong?
I love it.
Oh, man.
Can we do that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
I love ping pong. Paddles are at. We have these paddles that one of our guys made. Really? Oh, they're awesome.
Well, I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm Darren.
Yeah, this is when I built my driveway, the first one, and I did the metal section like twice. I really like the modern design, but it requires a lot more work. It's everything in it was custom, like literally custom made, and all done in my garage. So this wall over here on the outside is all metal. So it wraps up the wall, goes up the ceiling and down, and then this side is all the cedar, and what we decided to do is bring the outside in. We do a lot of custom builds, and we've done 15 custom builds, and we work very closely with each customer. On average, each customer, we have close to 1,000 emails.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, they can be short emails, you know?
Right.
But, I mean, I've had clients up to like 1,500 emails. There's a lot of back and forth at the beginning, and then we build. I wasn't really happy at my current job. It was a good job, and so there wasn't that relationship building. There wasn't that. I wasn't being able to be creative. And kind of at the same time, we went and toured Dee's house, and I crawled underneath Dee's house, and Dee was, you know, kind of getting mobbed by the crowds, and at some point she had an opening and came and crawled underneath the house with me. I was trying to figure out how did they attach this house to the trailer, and how does it not fly off the trailer when it goes down the road? And she just crawled underneath there with me, and we talked about kind of the nitty-gritty of trailer connection, and a few weeks later or something, she said, you should build one, you should do it. And I built the miter box. You know, it took me 6 months, but I built the miter box, and the community that kind of came around and the people I got to know led me to a second one, a little smaller one, a little simpler, and then from there we got our first client, and the refrigerator, and then a big sink, and then the stove. It's been a huge. Every house I learn, every house I gain another friend, you know, or gain another relationship with another finished carpenter, or the community here of craftsmen is that we've kind of brought in. We all benefit from each other. Iron Eagle trailer. I'm biased, but I haven't seen all the trailer manufacturers out there, but this guy builds an amazing trailer. This trailer this flooring would be raised up an inch, and underneath all of this would be a layer of foam. So this floor is not in direct contact with the trailer. So all in here is insulated, you know, 6 inches. This one has a metal pan to it for the road barrier, and then all leveling stabilization system, so it's nice. Like when we build this, we just have to, we can level it in a few minutes, and we go. When we were building that, we were renting an outdoor space that was a big covered area, and in the middle of electrical, someone came in and ripped out all of our metal, all of our plumbing, just, yeah, stole everything, stole all of our tools out of our shop.
Wow.
And I almost ended it on my first tiny house.
So why didn't you give up?
I just had a lot of really good people around me that have encouraged me to keep going, and Dee is like one of my heroes that just kept with me on it. And then all the man hours of the free labor that my buddies that were just like, they believed in what I was doing, and you know, I had to finish that house, if not for me, for them, because they had so much invested in it too. I think it's more due to the wood itself. I'm Guillaume, and this is Jenna, and we are Tiny House Giant Journey. We have built our house on a trailer, and we've been traveling with it for over 7 months now. Yeah, so this is our modular area. We have 2 of them, so we can put another one for a bed, or we can move them around. And then we have our dining table. We didn't have them from the beginning. We kind of like designed the outside, and then we're like, okay, how are we gonna do this? And up until we started building the inside, we were still wondering where we would have our counters and our staircase and our dining area. So design as you go was our approach. So
the build was a challenge. It was a true test of our relationship, and a test at how passionate we were about the project, how serious we were, you know?
yeah, we wanted to find a way for us to travel and do travel journalism on the road, and we figured we could try to build a tiny house that would do that and that we can also live in long term. So that's why we picked this particular design. Come on, come here, come on. Whoa! Who's your good girl? So usually this is where the dog bed would be, and this is where we sleep, and it's plenty of room for us. I'm pretty tall, and I get pretty close. Yeah, this is everything we own. This house and our truck is everything we own. We sold everything to be able to afford this project and to be able to do this project, and kind of like to get rid of material belongings that didn't really add anything to our life.
So the purpose of us traveling with a tiny house is that we're trying to create a portfolio for ourselves as travel journalists. We're passionate about travel. We're also now passionate about minimal living, and so we document our travels on our blog. We interview other people who are living in tiny houses, and we're trying to live on the road and continue to sustain ourselves.
Hi, I'm Yuichi. Yeah, Yuichi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Well, welcome to
thank you so much.
Eugene, the hippie capital of the world. So,
Is it?
Yeah, come on back. Do
Okay.
you want tea or anything? Come on back and I can show you around a little bit.
Okay.
And we can talk about what we want to do. Yeah, my name's Todd Miller, and I'm from Ohio, Akron, Ohio to be more precise. And I'm an architect. I'm now a builder of tiny houses and alternative buildings. I was working as an architect in Cleveland, Ohio, and I was doing more conventional work. I worked for very high design firms. We did work with firms throughout the country, so I did a lot of traveling, or some traveling, and working with clients that structures were up to $95, $100 million projects. Federal Reserve banks to theater restoration, beautiful work, very artistic. And then I moved to Portland back in '93. There was a couple moments that I recall that said, I'm going to make this change now. And part of it was on my commute that I made every day from Portland out to Mount Hood after I bought my 5 acres. Spending an hour and a half every day commuting back and forth and spending it in a vehicle where I'd much rather be spending it with friends, building with the tool belt on, learning and being creative. I also saw a couple accidents, and I was injured in one of those accidents. And I saw a person die. That affected me a lot, saying that I could be that next person in that vehicle. And I felt like I have so much to explore in my life. This is a double wall system. There's 2 2x4 stud walls in here. There's the EcoBat, and then this was existing. And I alternate the studs, so there's no heat transfer between this stud and that stud. I was 27 when I bought my land, and then I was 30 when I decided to leave the corporate architecture world and go full-time on my property. So it required some sacrifices. I was no longer getting the income I was getting before. So I moved out of the cabin and built my own structure. And the first one was a yurt, a cob yurt, which I put a canvas yurt on top of a cob structure and lived in that for 2 years, and then started taking workshops and traveling and learning. I went to Peru, Bolivia, I taught in Mexico with Cob Cottage. I had to relearn, I had to de-learn some of the architecture that I learned as far as the commercial work I was doing. What inspired me to do tiny houses was my partner at that time. She'd done some internet research, and she saw Jay Schaefer and Tumbleweed Tiny Homes that most people are pretty aware of, and the way he was living. And she goes, "You've been living that way since the mid-90s. She goes, "You've been living in smaller structures than that, and you've been fine." And she goes, "This is right up your alley." I think the main purpose for me building tiny houses and to empower people to change their lives. Number one, I think. I love seeing people reorganize their lives prior to getting their tiny house. They're downsizing, they're going out to their driveway and putting 2x4s down the ground and trying to figure out how they can live in this space with less things. That's huge, that I'm giving the opportunity for people to rethink the things that they have and how that they can live more simply.
My name is Alec Lasevsky, and I'm originally from Iowa. I mostly do web design and development, but I kind of enjoy design of all kinds. So the prospect of designing my own house and just architecture in general has always interested me. So I was hoping to apply my two-dimensional web design skills to something else. I mean, I think one of the most interesting things about my house is just the angles of the roof. Several years ago when I designed this, they were all like the tumbleweed style gabled roofs. And so I think just those two like kind of converging roof lines is pretty unique. Seemed like such an obvious design choice. Yeah, the whole design process, I mean, I took many months just doing research and sketching a ton of floor plan. This is one of several notebooks, so it doesn't have all of them, but so I was just doing like anything I thought, any combination I thought might work for the different elements I wanted. I mean, I just did tons. So these are, I mean, that's pretty similar to what it looks right now. These are some early sketches. The main thing was just designing a floor plan that was very specific to my needs. And so just thinking through each of the activities that I actually do every day and designing it around those specific needs. But I think what's more interesting is just the cantilevered part of the loft that sticks out of there. I wanted to make enough space in the loft for like closet space on both sides of the bed. So you'll see when we go up there that it adds enough space like for a whole bunch of extra storage. Even though tiny houses are so simple, like the complexity of it and fitting all the puzzle pieces together, it was a challenge, but it was also a really, really fun challenge. But it was also really challenging incorporating then what I felt was a good design and into like actual building practice, and then realizing how walls needed to be framed and putting the design and construction part of it together and learning how to do that properly and finding people to help and sourcing materials and all of that. I mean, there were so many challenges along the way. I think managing the whole project was the biggest challenge. Design itself, I love. I'm so happy with it. I marvel at how just great it is. I'm so happy to be in it, and I'm like, wow, thank you for spending the time ahead of time in the design process to make it really perfect, because now I'm so happy that I didn't like rush through that and that I have everything that I need just built in.
My name is Logan Smith. I am 37 years old. I live in Little Shasta, California.
And I'm Tammy Strobel. I'm a writer, photographer, and teacher, and I live in a tiny house.
So when I was young, I could not wait to leave because I was sick of seeing so many cows. I wanted to see people, and I wanted to interact with people. But we had an illness in the family. We decided that we missed family a lot. And so we wanted to come back to be closer to family. And also, when we came back, we fell in love with the area and how beautiful the area is around us and just the serene peacefulness about it.
Yeah, I love the natural beauty in this area. There's so many opportunities to go hiking, and I'm a photographer, so you know, you can't really beat the scenery here. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, we actually saw Dee Williams on YouTube, and at that time we had already been downsizing into smaller and smaller living spaces, and so when we saw her video online, we were like, oh my gosh, we need a tiny house, and so we started saving up for this space.
We're going smaller, but we hadn't gone that small yet, and so we weren't sure whether we could we're not. However, because we saw that as an end goal, we made small steps towards that direction. We started out at 1,200 square feet, 2 bedrooms, and we moved out of 1 bedroom. And so we only had 1 bedroom that we used. And then from there, we went to 700 square feet, and then we went to a 400 square foot studio. And then from there to the tiny house. We got fewer and fewer items each time. Our impression once we moved into the tiny house was one of pure joy, in that we had been preparing for so long that it was a dream come true. And so we really, we lived in the house without curtains for a while, just to let in all the natural lighting. And although we realized our neighbors didn't always want to see us naked, so we closed them.
Well, sometimes we bump into each other, but I mean, it's fine. Like, I don't know, we just kind of go about our normal daily routines, and Logan has a day job, so, you know, typically he's not in the house from 8 to 5 or 6, and I work for myself, so I'll either work here during the day or at a coffee shop, maybe outside. But it's nice because, especially in the spring and summer and fall, you can really use outside as, you know, part of your home.
The tiny house was more of an extension of our philosophy. It was a way to have something small that we could understand and distill our values, and to express ourselves in a way, and something that was very ours, custom make something that fit us like tailored clothing.
But the tiny house is great, but it's sort of, you know, things change, and we just try and be flexible and adapt as our lives change and as circumstance changes. I think that's the beauty of simplifying, whether you live in a tiny house or a tree house or an apartment. Like, being able to be flexible, I think, is really important.
Tiny house may not be forever also. So for now, it works for our circumstance, and people understand that transitions are difficult.
My name is Gabriella.
My name's Tara.
And I'm Andrew Morrison, and we live in a 207 square foot tiny house in Ashland, Oregon. So basically, this is our home. This has the bathroom, the kitchen, and everything that a regular house would have. This is what we have here. That's where we live and spend all of our time. And when we're outside, we have a lot of spaces that we've created for ourselves. We've got a dining area out here so we can sit and have meals outside when the weather's nice. We've got a sitting area over here by a fireplace. The treehouse here is our son's, and that's where he sleeps. And our daughter's cabin over here, that's where she sleeps. Although both the kids, when they're home, they spend most of their time in the house with us, but this is just sort of their own private spaces. We have 5.5 acres here, so the land goes basically this way. It goes all the way up the hill that way and down to the road the other direction. So lots of room for the dogs to play as well, so that's kind of nice. And it's peaceful for us. There's not a lot of people around us. We have one neighbor that is relatively close, but other than that, it's pretty much just us up here, which is really nice.
built our tiny house. We started 2 years ago, and we've been living in it full-time for a little more than a year and a half. It took us 4 months to build, and we designed and built it ourselves.
So before we moved into our tiny house, we had spent time living in a pop tent trailer in Mexico, living literally on the beach. Prior to that, that was sort of the beginning of our tiny house experience. Prior to that, we were living in sort of the American dream home. It was just shy of 2,000 square feet. Beautiful house here in town, but we very quickly realized it wasn't so much the American dream as it was the American nightmare.
When they first introduced the idea to me of tiny houses, I didn't take them 100% seriously because they had a lot of sort of ideas just like this one where let's go live on a cruise, let's go live in a hotel and all of this stuff. And so when they brought it up to me at first, I was sure that sounds great, but I didn't think it would actually happen. And so when it started becoming a reality, I thought it was actually really cool and really awesome.
This space here is designed for, it's sized and designed and plumbed for a washer dryer combo. So this thing helps a lot, the scan snap. We do all of we'll have papers up in here, and those are to be scanned or to be mailed out. The other thing that I didn't like about it was that the composting took place in the unit as opposed to outside of the unit. This one, it takes place outside of the unit. So this is a Swedish company called Separate. It has the front side is for liquid waste, and then the back side is for solid, so it separates the two. And then when you sit down on the seat, it slides that open, so it helps keep, again, any odors out. And there is a wasp up here, that's great. So this is basically a queen size, it's the size of a queen size mattress up here. So plenty of room. We can get 3 or 4 people sitting up here watching a movie. Full-size range here, so we've got 4 burners and then a center burner as well, a double sort of long burner. You don't need more than 1 wooden spoon to cook and to cook well. I used to have 6. That was sort of what I thought was normal. So yeah, what we knew about tiny homes when we first started really getting excited about them was that they were really tiny and they felt too tiny for us. So we started really focusing on what I've been calling human scale, and building to the scale of what we need, not to the scale of what tiny means. When I talk about human scale, the idea of, like, for some people it's perfect to have all of everything contained within their house because they're going to be moving their house a lot and driving around. We're clear that's not us. So we wanted the tiny house because we love the tiny house, but we also have the ability to have some extra stuff on the outside. So in here we have got our generator. This is I don't know if you guys know, do you guys play much hockey or have hockey in Japan? Hockey gear stinks. It smells really bad because we sweat a lot when we're playing. And Gabriella said there's no way that stuff's coming in the house. So this is where I get to put it. But this is also where we keep our solar stuff. So this is our battery bank here. We have 4 batteries. So we've got, I know this is our inverter here, battery fuse. We've got our solar circuits and then the charge controller. So lots of monitoring and lots of notes that I've written over the time of what this all means and how to figure it all out. So. When we went to Mexico and lived down there for the 5 months we were there, before we left, we sold or donated probably 70 to 80% of what we owned. We just got rid of it. Our house, extra car, just got rid of everything. And then we put some stuff in storage, and this is the stuff that we were going to keep, and this was important to us. When we came back from Mexico, I opened up the storage. In the front, there were several boxes that were marked office, vital, kitchen, vital. So these are really important boxes. They're at the front of the storage. I took out the kitchen vital. I got home, opened it up. It had 6 wooden spoons in it. It had a little plastic tub that keeps cilantro fresh and like a paper towel holder. And I turned to Gabriella and I said, who are these people? Like, how is this vital? And all of it got folded back up. I took 1 spoon out and we sent it to Goodwill. Like, you don't need that. So We really, really, really simplified over time. At this point, we're probably down to maybe owning 10% of what we used to own.
That trip to Baja was so transformational, and so much happened in just those 5 months. And that first month, it truly was hell. We really almost did just turn that whole wagon and adventure around and come back up with tails between our legs, and we were gonna have to tell everybody we made a huge mistake because we were miserable. But I think it needed to be that horrible and that intense. It just kind of shook everything up at such a deep structural level. And honestly, ever since then, so that was 3.5 years ago, the habits that we developed down there in terms of our approach to life, to each other, communication, relationship have stuck. And that's been awesome, very surprising.
Yeah, my name is Lloyd Kahn. I'm the editor-in-chief at Shelter Publications. We're standing in my studio now, built out of recycled materials. Yeah, I mean, this is my space here. That's all my bird skulls over there, and that's a rattlesnake.
Right. Yeah.
And I skin animals I find dead on the road.
Oh,
that's a skunk.
By itself.
Here's the book that I did in 1970. It was called Dome Book 1.
Wow.
And so we built domes, and so we did Dome Book 1 in 1970, and then we did Dome Book 2 in 1971. The thing about tiny homes is the book Shelter, the core of Shelter was tiny homes. The middle of the book, we drew 5 little tiny homes. We drew a flat roof, shallow gable, a steep gable, a gambrel roof, which is 4 sides, hip roof, and we drew every piece of wood in the building so that people could look at it and say, I understand that. And so that was 1973. We didn't call it tiny homes. And we didn't call what we were doing natural building, but it was natural building. And so almost 50 years ago, we were doing tiny homes. And back in, so 2012 comes along, and there's this big movement called tiny homes. And so I thought, well, I mean, I know something about that. So we did the book. And the book has been pretty popular. Yeah, well, first I had a little tiny house here. That's gone. And then the dome, and then the tower, and then I took the dome down. And so, all along, constantly building, constantly changing things. The tiny homes, a 200-300 square foot home, it's not for a lot of people, I mean, if you're a couple, you're going to have to get along pretty well with each other, you know, or you each have your own tiny home, you know. I use the word home in our book rather than house because I think a home is more than a house. This is, and I'll show you. These are worms. They're crazy about these things. So if we ever let them out and we want to get them back into the pen, I go like this so they know what this is. Watch what happens here. Well, a house is just a structure. A home is way more than a house. I mean, what I think of as a real home is a place that it keeps the rain off, and it's also a place where you live and you eat and you have rugs on the floor. It looks nice. It feels good to be there. You can keep warm. It's a place to come when you get sick. We want a home that's warm and feels good when you walk into it, and has these characteristics that we want to live with, and aesthetics are part of it. So I think that's the difference, and that's why we called our book Tiny Homes.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was raised, it was my dad, my mom, and my sister and I, and we lived in 4,000 square feet, which would be about 10 times the amount of space I've typically lived in a small house per person. And yet they had to work a lot to pay that mortgage, and it didn't work very well for them, and it didn't really make anyone happy. So I was lucky to be exposed to that, the dark side early on.
I think that the hardest part throughout this entire experience was just the initial shock. Like the first month was, I mean, it was horrible, and it was the learning period. It was where everybody was trying to figure out what was going on and how to respect everybody's boundaries and learning what those boundaries were and everything. And once we got everything figured out, it was just smooth sailing from then on. But it's that first sort of shock of just jumping headfirst into the tiny house lifestyle. It's a lot. It's a big change.
I always had this dream in my mind of a small home for my family, and our family, our city, our town was affected by the 2011 disaster, earthquake and tsunami. We lost our home. It was just material possessions. We had our lives. I had no clothes, I had no job, I had no money left. But we wanted to stay with our friends and our community because it was our life. Then I thought, we lived in kasetsu jutaku, so kasetsu was good because people worked so hard, so fast to build really good housing. It was simple housing, but good and really done well, fast. But it also didn't feel lovely. It didn't feel
Probably the biggest sticking point in designing tiny houses, the difficulty is that a truly efficient space really has to match the needs of the person living in it or the people living in it. So, designing a stock design for folks is a little risky or inefficient in the sense that it's hard to know if they need that extra bedroom or if they need an extra bedroom beyond that.
Architectural philosophers that are getting back to the core of what architecture and living in spaces and creating space that feels heartfelt, mindful, secure, but yet expansive at the same time.
Having a small space that you designed yourself for a specific purpose, for some reason has a totally different feel to it. And also knowing that you're working with these size limitations for a specific reason. Like to build on a trailer and to be mobile. So you're choosing a somewhat restricted space in order to have other freedoms. Just a tiny space on its own doesn't lead to anything. It can lead to a lot of unhappiness. But a tiny house embodies a lot more than just a small space. And I think all those things combined can create a really beautiful life.
Welcome, welcome, welcome!
How was your trip? All good?
I'm Dee Williams. You're standing in Olympia, Washington. This is my backyard. So my friends Jeff and Emily and their boys Callum and Ollie live in that house. My friends Hugh and Annie and their kids Kiva and Callan live in that house. And I live here with me and my dog, Oli. I built this in 2004, and it took me 3 months to build it. I designed it based on what I thought would feel good. You know, a lot of the materials that I used were, salvaged or recycled. And so, the house has a story to tell just from the materials that were chosen. This came out of a dumpster. All of this is old barn siding with the overhangs. And all of this came out of somebody's demolition project. So it was really fun to try to make the house work based on, what I found. And then if you come on back this way, this is what I called the great room. And it's funny, it's about 6'10" from wall to wall, and about 5 feet 8 inches this direction. So even though the space is very small, it still has a volume. And I think in part it's the skylight. Plus, if you're standing here, you're kind of wondering what's back up over there. So you get this stretch diagonally toward the skylight that's up in the sleeping loft. Well, it's funny, I was about 2 months into building it. I only had 1 month left, and I saw that, my project was going to be done. I had to move out of my big house because I had sold that. Would come up to Olympia, and I started talking to some friends about it, and Hugh and Annie were some of my best friends. So Annie and I took a walk around the lake one day, and Annie asked me, she's like, so where are you going to park your house? And I was like, I don't know. I was kind of thinking maybe I could park it in your backyard. And I was waiting, and she's like, oh, good, that's what we wanted too. So the decision was kind of made. Uh-oh, can you see? Which way do we gotta go? And I think we got it upside down. Oh, that's so much better. It's like smashing your face. We might skip the mask. What do you think? No. All right.
No, you like it.
Okay, let's go do our package delivery. Come on, Callum. Let's go deliver our package to Annie. Annie, yeah.
I've known Dee since I have no idea, since I was a small child, before she moved here. One time, me and my mom took the train to Portland, and Dee picked us up wearing a suit jacket, boxer shorts, and had a little cardboard sign that said, I don't even remember what it said, but she was just wearing boxer shorts. It was embarrassing.
She is graduating from the Evergreen State College, which is here in Olympia.
In June.
And she's going to send out a graduation announcement, and she's going to use the picture of her on the motorcycle
Oh,
when
yay!
she's a little girl for her announcement.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I mean, a picture of her now and a picture of
In the
her
past, yeah.
in the past on the big motorcycle.
I don't really remember it all too well. I remember having to take out the back fence and how big of a hassle it was getting it through the alleyway, this giant house, moving it back and forth, like into the blackberry bushes, many times crushing the blackberry bushes. And then finally, yeah, I was super interested in like the solar power and I think we put blocks up. That's my memory of it, yeah.
Come on. We'll do it together.
Yeah.
Okay? Here we go. I have known Hugh and Annie, who live in the house over here, since I was 7 years old. And we were living up in Seattle and decided that we wanted to move to Olympia. And it was recently after Rita, who lived in this house, had died. And so I asked Hugh and Annie if they were interested in renting the house. And so we decided to move into the house. And it has just worked out amazingly to have Dee in the backyard. She and my children have a really lovely friendship. And it's wonderful having her here.
I know, you're very strong.
Yeah, let's definitely barbecue it. That's why I got it. So we'll get some.
Ooh, you got a whole Explorer kit in there. Nice. Awesome. Binoculars are a boy's best friend. Used to be walkie-talkies, but cell phones came and go.
Yeah, I know. I love the walkie-talkies.
I know, right? When we were kids, that's all we had.
I know.
I stole the furry birthday.
You gonna try those big pins on again?
You know, in talking to Hugh and Annie, they were a lot more comfortable with it than I was. I thought I was going to be imposing, and this yard was, you know, Callan and Kiva's play area, you know, and I felt like I was going to be taking up a part of that. And then, so I was worried about whether or not all of that would get old for them. And they had absolutely no doubts. They were very excited to have me in the backyard, which just makes me so happy still. And I've grown to love this place. These people have become my family. And I feel really honored to be able to be a single, independent woman, but nested inside this awesome family and community. And I would wish that for anybody, you know, that they find a sense of home like that.
美味しいんです。
はい乾杯
ビールを飲みたいでしょうか。
I decided to build a tiny house for a couple of reasons, and I think a part of it was going to Guatemala and kind of seeing how the rest of the world lives and recognizing that I was caught up in my big house and, you know, kind of buying things and paying for things and working and rushing around trying to pay for my house in a way that just didn't match my values. Like I wanted to be able to have more time and money to give to the people and things that are important to me. And then the other part of it was being diagnosed with congestive heart failure and realizing, you know, if I wanted to change my life, if I wanted to do something, I needed to do it now. I couldn't put it off until retirement. I couldn't put it off until I had a big bank account. I couldn't put it off for any longer. I needed to do it now. And so building a tiny house and living differently, smaller, gave me an opportunity to be able to hang out with my neighbors differently, to get to know the people at my local food co-op differently, to be able to enjoy this. I mean, this is beautiful, and have time for that. You know, most of my friends are at work right now. I'm not at work right now. I'm hanging out with you guys. So I feel very blessed to have made that decision, and you know, it still continues to offer me what I want.
We've had a few clients where we've had to just kind of not make any money on the project, or very little money, and get their tiny house out the door. And that's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling when I deliver a tiny house and I'm not stoked about it. I love delivering a tiny house and having a client so excited and loving it. But there's been a few where it's like, I can say I put everything I did into that tiny house, and it still didn't quite meet their expectations. And that's hard, because there's a little piece of me in every single one of these tiny homes.
Whenever you get words like green, sustainable, natural, tiny house, you'll find people milking the ambiguity of those words to make a profit. But when it's being forced on you, you know, like you have to buy a house that's so big, and you have to buy this stuff, I think it just starts, there's gonna be a pendulum swing at some point, you know? For me, it seems like I guess when I started getting into this stuff, it was that time when the pendulum, on a broad scale, needed to swing, and it was already swinging, and I grabbed hold of it, and a lot of people are. Riding this wave, thank God. That's good.
Come on. Whoa!
So the way things have changed in the backyard, you know, when I moved into the backyard, it was Hugh and Annie and their very young kids. They were in grade school. And then over the last 11 years, I've gotten to see the kids go through high school and graduate and go to college. And then next door, Hugh's Aunt Rita, you know, when I moved into the backyard, she was 80 years old and fairly independent. And I got to see her at the end of her life. You know, the last 10 years of her life. She died 2 years ago, and I'll be honest with you, that cleaved me open. It shattered me, because I loved her so much. And then the gift out of that was that we had this amazing family of Jeff and Emily, and their kids move in, and it's all starting all over again. I get to know these kids, and hopefully I'll get to be an old woman and see those kids go through high school and move on as well. And so I've gotten this like snapshot of the cycle of life in the backyard that has been a very big gift for me, because I thought my life was going to be so short. I thought I was going to die early, and instead, ta-da! I'm getting to be an old woman, and I've gotten to hold this giant bit of life, which is really cool.
Logan and I live in Wairika, California, in a 400 square foot apartment. We wanted a change, and also where the tiny house is, it felt really isolating, at least for me, because I work at home. And, you know, unfortunately, you can't legally live in a tiny house within the city of Wairika, so Logan and I didn't really want to move to a new town completely and start over. Now we live in an apartment, so, you know, we have a full bathroom, so like, that's a change and something different. But as far as the stuff we have, that really hasn't changed. And our philosophy of wanting to live simply and to just be happy. I feel like we're living in a tiny house now. It's a tiny apartment.
We're building these tiny homes for people to simplify their life, but my life and my wife's life and my kids' life and people that worked for me, their lives weren't simple. We just needed to stop and take a break and reevaluate. So this is, it's sort of taken on its own name, so it's called the Kennedy Camper, named after my son. His name's Kennedy. And it's this truck, Dee Williams gave me this truck. It was the truck she bought to tow her Vardo around with. And I've taken it out to the beach and had some adventures in it, and it has a lot of memories already built into it. And so this is mainly built for me and my son to go on some adventures here in the Northwest. He's five and a half, coming on 6, and so he's primed for some good memories to start, for us to start making with him. Yeah.
I would like to gently remind people that the reason to build a tiny house is for your heart, for your relationships, and the tiny house doesn't necessarily change who you are. It's not about the tiny house. It's about how you are living day to day and whether or not you're in community with the people that you love. So you can do that in an apartment. You can do that even in a big house if you're living the way that your heart tells you to live, you know? So for me, it's become less and less and less about a tiny house and more and more and more about connecting to my people and my natural community.
Yeah! It's like slow and then lunge. Yeah.
I think our relationship has changed, for sure. Like at first, I was young enough that if my parents went on vacation, that Dee would look after us. And I remember when I was sort of like a teenager, I wasn't very good at telling people where I was. I didn't like that. I think that's like the only fights we've ever been in, is when I was a teenager and you were like, where were you? And I'm like, I'm just a teenager. You're like, your parents told me to look after you. But now it's like more of an even relationship, and we can just hang out, and I feel like we're on even ground, and we can be friends.
What's the tiny house for us, for me? That's a hard question. The tiny house is the power to change your life. And it's very hard to answer because there's so many things. It's not a thing. And part of it is a thing. It's a little house, it's cute and it works, it helps us live on the road, but it completely changed our lives. I would have never imagined that I could make a living off of travel journalism 2 years ago. It gave us the power to change our lives. It gave us the power to go to our boss and say, hey, you know, thanks for the job, but we're gonna do something else. And he looked at me and he looked at it and I showed him pictures online and he's like, you're a good worker. I am not even gonna try to stop you. and you go for it, you do it. This is and it was, I'm so thankful that he had that type of mentality. And yeah, so thanks to the tiny house, I felt comfortable saying that and taking control of my life, basically.
So this is essentially my retirement home, and it's 56 square feet. You know, it essentially has everything I need. A place to sleep, a little writing desk, you know, a place to store my tchotchkes. So there you have it. You've taken the extensive tour. I hope you're not too tired. And like, relax a little bit now.
And maybe the last thing I would say about the tiny house movement is that the point isn't to have a tiny house or a tiny home. The point is to get smaller, you know, to go in that direction. You know, like perfection, you never get things perfect, but you go in that direction.
I'm so interested because there's so many people that want to make the change. And it's like, how do you do it financially? How do you, not necessarily drop out. I don't want to say drop out. I almost want to say like drop in.
Finding my way back in America because I just came back to America after 11 years. So maybe a tiny house can be a good transition for me and maybe a good learning experience, but I'm not sure yet.
Having options is empowering. When you have options, then you determine your own destiny, and that's freedom.
One thing I would say is simplicity is really a luxury. Like getting rid of all that extra stuff that is not necessary to one's happiness. Knowing what really makes you happy and following that thread instead of all this stuff that is presented as making you happy. I mean, if I were to believe what is presented as making me happy, I would be up to debt, credit card debt, up to my eyeballs or higher, because that's what consumer culture tends to do.